Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a bridge to a better life discussion. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and with me is Anne Sinclair. Hi, Anne. Hope you're doing well.
Hi,
As
thank you
we,
for having me.
very good. As we know, Anne, guilt is this emotional experience, right? It's felt and it manifests itself in response to whatever. To it can be an action, a thought, a word, or even another feeling, another emotion around something that was done wrong. It can be a mistake, it can be a perception of something going wrong. But in so many words, guilt stems from a tension between what I want and what I expect that that the outcome of my action, my word, my thought, etc. to be. And I would like for us to talk about how do we overcome guilt and that tension. But before we address that, I wanted to introduce our program to those of you who have not heard it before. If this is the first time watching our podcast and the program, please note that this program, the Psychology and Spirituality Weekly Talks, are based on the works by Joanna de Angelis, and it offers a safe space, right? And for us to confront, compare, to discuss, to expand our concepts, and want to push those concepts from a spiritual as well as a psychological lens so that we can get some interesting insights or even tips to lead a better life. Today's episode, it is sponsored by several organizations. They are the United States Spiritist Federation, the TV Mansão do Caminho, the International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil. And I always ask you to please hit subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you want to know more about this program or even other channels, let us know. You can reach us at www.spiritist.us. And if you have a question or feedback or critique, anything, we'd love to hear from you. Please put in the chat window and we'll address it at a later time. And let's think about what we're going to talk about here when we say we're going to overcome guilt, right? When we discuss that, I'm often faced with thoughts about another issue, another topic in itself, right? Which is the idea of tolerance, or in so many words, our ability or willingness, right, to tolerate something, especially if I don't agree with that, right? If there is a some sort of disagreement between somebody's actions, and that includes my own and what I expected from them. I want to perhaps quote Joanna de Angelis in a very interesting book. It's called Jesus in Our Days. It's her first book in the of the psychological series, or also known as the Psychology Collection of Books, a series of 16 books, right? In that book, Joanna talks to us a little bit about the fact that tolerance is an imperative, right? For all of us, if we want to achieve mental and emotional well being, right? So, tolerance for my mental and emotional well being. So, she says in her books that those are my words, but basically, when we are tolerant, we understand that whoever, right, fails or even falls down from whatever social status he or she may be at because of mistake, right? When we understand that person and we are because we understand, we're able to extend our hands, we're able to be tolerant at its highest mark and help that person to get up. And if we keep going with that thought process, and from the perspective of depth psychology, so let's think about what is depth psychology. Is the field of psychology that is concerned especially with the unconscious mind, right? If we think about it, we start to grapple with the fact that if I am not tolerant, right, I am judging. So, depth psychology says that to judge other people's failure is a serious serious act, and it's quite inhumane because we all make mistakes. So, and I ponder on that subject, right? When we are unable to tolerate, we're judgmental. When we're judgmental, we start to really apply certain policies, rules, regulations, even ethical, cultural systems to justify my superiority, right, to the other. So the person that we're judging, the accused, many times does not even have an opportunity to defend themselves, right? But if we think about it, quite, and I'm going to give the mic to you just about now. But if you think about it, right, when we judge others, if we're really truthful about it, um, most of the times our judgment is based on maybe senseless, maybe a very rigid view that I structure my mind that I have, and I'm judging the other. I am perhaps even very arbitrary. I judge you, and who's my friend, and I love you, and I like you, and I judge you less harshly than the other. So there's all those nuanced approach on judgment. But in the process of judging, I review my own shadow, right? I project onto somebody my own uh, um aspects of my personality that may be repressed, and I see my own image, right, in the other. I see that I all this what I see in the other elicits some strong feelings, including hatred, right? Including even the desire, even it's not executed on the desire, but to destroy the other, to eliminate the other. And because of all this that's going in the deep end of our own self, there is this interesting mechanism, this self regulating process called guilt. And in the guilt process, many of us, so it's now I'm guilty because I'm having all those emotions about the other, which is really a projection of my own shadow to the other, right? But when I feel guilt, I am trying this regulating mechanism is for me to try to get back, right, to eradicate that feeling that I've done something wrong. So let's pause about it, and maybe we can talk a little bit about guilt, what comes in that the personal unconscious, and all of it. Because last time we met and talked about guilt, we talked a lot about parenting, right? And I don't know if you remember, but we discussed all the conscious or unconscious impact of parenting and how do we deal with that from a guilt perspective. But now let's move the parents aside. Let's talk about the process itself. Can you tell me something? And I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts, Anne.
Thank you so much, Marcia. It's lovely to be here and to have the opportunity to stop and think. I'm a simple person, and I like to just think about, what's this all about. So I take it as in everything. Whenever I got a crisis or drama in the life, or with my kids and things, I say, okay, so where are we? What is the risk at the moment? Just reel it back down to the basics. What are we feeling? What are we worried about? And what can we do about it?
Yes.
And I think that the issues around feelings of guilt, they are very also mixed up with a lot of our cultural and social habits, customs from this life, from previous lives. So sometimes it's difficult to untangle everything, and it might seem like we're trying to go up Mount Everest in sandals. You know what I mean?
I love it. Love the image.
Let's just bring it back to the simple things, and say, wow, there's a lot here. But one of the things we can start with is thinking, who am I? I am a child of God. I am a being of light, just as you are, and just as everybody on the planet is. We are God's children. We are created simple and ignorant, and we go having experiences through many lives in which we go building our knowledge, our wisdom, developing our understanding about ourselves and about relating to our neighbors, our family, our community, and the wider community. So everything that affects me affects everybody else as well. So when you talk about things like the projection, and like say, what do I see in others that is really bothering me? Yeah, what do I see? So where does my attention go? What calls my attention? So when you're going along the motorway or the highway, as they say in the US, and you're looking out of the window, you're the passenger, of course, not the driver. You're looking out the window and you're looking on one side and you're seeing beautiful mountains and nature and animals. Oh, that's beautiful, whatever. Or you might be looking out on the other side and there's lots of difficult situations, sad things, and you go, oh, that's sad, those poor housing, those people in the street, nowhere to go. And you're thinking the journey is the same. It depends where your focus goes. Are you interested in looking one side or the other? There's no right or wrong, but wherever you're looking, there is something to learn there.
Yes.
So when we are attracted to others because of what they do that affects us, like it upsets us, it makes us angry, or it triggers us, as a modern word that people like to use, then they're thinking like, why is that affecting me? Why is what that person said affecting me so much? Oh, it's because they are this and they are that, and they. Oops, stop, roll it back. They are giving us the opportunity to pay attention to something about ourselves,
Yes.
not comfortable, because we are just accusing them of something bad. We don't like that. I always remember once when we were talking about one of the main things that the spirits in the spiritist teachings suggest to us as a means of advancement and growth is self-knowledge.
Yes.
Self-knowledge is really difficult because we don't have the habit of really looking at ourselves in the mirror, and we just believe the PR that we set out about
I
ourselves
love it.
rather than what's really there. But when something in somebody else really bothers us, there's a clue there, as uncomfortable as it might be, that might take us back. So you talk about regulating mechanisms.
Yes.
God's law, the law of the universe, however you want to put it, is perfect, and it balances itself perfectly. Because we are not there yet, we are still, on the beginning of our spiritual journeys. We struggle sometimes to understand the perfection of how things turn up at the right time, at the right place, and how did this happen? Because we are still dealing with things in quite a reactive way. You say, I say, this, that. But the mechanisms of the universe, they're not in a hurry. They're like geology time.
Yes.
Everything will happen in due course.
Yeah.
So when we think about guilt, we can say that all of us, we make mistakes. If you can't accept that you make mistakes, then you need to stop and think a little bit, because it's inevitable. It's part of our ignorance. It's part of our, how do we know what is good and what is bad? How do we experiment different things and learn and conclude and learn what the consequences are? It's by doing things, just like children. So we do things, and sometimes the consequences are not good. And then we could potentially hide that from everybody else. Nobody saw us do the wrong thing. So we are safe. We're getting away with it, inverted commas. You don't get
Yeah.
away with anything. The universal justice is there, but it's not because it's a punitive God or a punitive system that's persecuting you and going to find you wherever and bring you what you do. No, it's because it's an educational system.
Yes.
And so you need to be able to face the consequences of your actions so that you can learn from it. But sometimes if you've done something wrong and you've got away with it, whatever it is, and then you think, oh my gosh, I'm safe. Nobody will ever know. We can just hide that and carry on. But you can't hide it from yourself. And one day it comes knocking because somebody out there does something similar, and you accuse them because you know exactly how that is because you've done it. Although you've
Yeah.
forgotten about it by now, you've hidden it, but
But it's
you,
registered, right? And if I
it's
may, sorry
registered.
for, yeah,
It's
every single experience, and I think it's a, you started by saying the journey of the mortal soul, right? And I joke, this is my joke, my personal joke, that today I'm living my incarnation number 10,000, 10,000, right? So it is a lot of experience,
mm,
right? And it's full of perhaps a historical context that I inherit, but it's also in full of cultural, right? The zeitgeist of each incarnation. So I kind of I bring that with me. The spirit that lived, for example, during, which was before my time, World War II, is very different than the spirit today, Marcia, that had a very different lifetime and yet very different than children being born as we speak today, right? So very different spirit type. But back to me in my incarnation number 10,000, I have all of that in addition to everything bringing on your thought, your learnings, right? And the learnings in many times are happen because we failed, right?
mm,
We failed, we made a mistake, we became frustrated, we got angry, we got in the middle of this outburst of anger and violence, we killed, right? We hurt, we did so many things in those processes that may have taken millennia to get to where I am today. But what I just wanted to bring to everybody, all of this is registered in the map of our spirit, in the that memory that may not be completely available at our fingertip from a conscious level, but it is there in our personal unconscious. And I think this is what you're talking about. It's all there, right, Anne?
mm,
And because of it, one way to deal with it is projecting, right?
mm,
But the other is things out there, things trigger my own mechanism of feeling guilty, right? My own inadequacies, my own past mistakes.
yeah. And I think that one of the important things to consider, because if we think in the past, or anybody who's had, like, say, incarnations quite recently with
Mm,
severe uh, societal or religious rulings, in which
mhm.
your mistake could lead to
Yeah.
condemning to death, to
Hmm.
hell. to
Hmm.
no recourse to try again or to improve it. That kind of philosophy or makeup is very severe and has put us into a mindset where
Yeah.
we don't even want to admit it to ourselves because the consequences will be so grave.
Yes.
But I have to bring it back to the teachings of Jesus and how misunderstood in a way
Hmm.
perhaps he has been, because when he says things like, to the woman who was being condemned by her societal group, and then they give up, and he says, well, who's condemning you? And she said, no one. She said, go and sin no more.
Yeah.
Go and sin no more means, go and learn from this, you know
Yes.
and this is the law. We have to learn from things. So if we have done something which is, whether it's little or big, and it's gone against, let's say, the universe's laws, it will niggle us like a stone in our shoe until we come face to face with it. But sometimes we are afraid of what that might mean because we have these demons of the past, of being
Yes.
so judged, of being so condemned, that we have to try and hide it as best we can to survive, if you like. But when we mature as a spirit and we see that there is, the fundamentals of the universe are love, and it's all about learning and developing, that nothing is the end of the world. That's one of my common expressions. I say, well, whatever happens, nothing is the end of the world. What used to seem like the end of the world is no more. Even our physical death is not the end of the world, because if this body dies, I continue as a spirit form, and then I can have another life, another opportunity. So nothing is ever the end. But to be able to face the consequences of our actions, or our thoughts, or whatever we did, in a calm and adult responsible way of
Hmm.
actually looking at it, saying, okay, yeah, I get that, not good, and learning from it, rather than reacting like a small child and pushing it away and saying, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it was my brother. you know
Yes. Yes.
it's it's just being brave to be able to face the things. So what is the
Yeah.
worst we have done?
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking at it like that, and I think it just, it's so liberating to think
Yes.
that way,
Yeah.
to
It,
break away from this very constraining always a thought, and just going back to say the motivator behind everything in the universe is the law of love. For
yes.
God is
Yes.
love, and that
And go ahead.
we are expected to develop our ability to love.
Yes.
Where does that start?
Yes.
We need to be able to love ourselves.
Yes. And
Even,
I think, if I may, don't hold on to your thoughts, right? But I think, when we discuss guilt and the shadow, right? That's that shadow that just doesn't quiet itself. It's like, Marcia, I'm part of your repressed memory. But there is that disturbing thought that is gnawing at you, right? And it gnawing so much as it tries to come up to the surface, that it may lead to certain aspects of unbalance, or emotional disadjustments, maladjustments, or even disease, mental or physical disease, because it is, as we mentioned before, engraved in this panel that makes all of us unique individuals, right? And what I wanted to say here, and before you move forward, is the fact that this mechanism, which you were talking about, self-love, right? It's one that in itself, it's quite interesting, right? I feel guilty and I can remain forever. I have a story that I can tell you about it if we have time. But I can remain guilty forever, or I can allow that guilt to come through, right? And with guilt comes remorse. With remorse comes the realization that I've done something wrong. With that realization, I can reach out to myself or to you, who is the object of my wrongdoing, and say, hey, I've done something wrong. And please, please, do you have room in your heart to forgive me? But let's not stop there, right? We have an entire multitude of lifetimes to engage in that process of reparation, so that the bonds between me and you is no longer a bond of I am indebted to you, right? You're my creditor. You require that I do something. But as a repair, the bond now becomes one of love and beauty and affection, and a commitment to help the other. Does this make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And I think that, this thing, like you were saying, the guilt,
Yeah, yeah,
forgiveness.
yeah.
And I have come across people that cannot forgive themselves.
Cannot. Yeah, yeah,
So, although the person who suffered the wrong, inverted commas, has already freed them and moved on and say, "Look, I forgive you. I'm past this. I'm gone. I'm on to something else."
yeah,
They're caught up in their own guilt, and
yeah,
they can't forgive themselves because say, how could I have done this? How could
yeah,
I have done this? And it's just so interesting because this was like a sentence that this person in particular, a case I'm thinking about, is to say, I cannot forgive myself. I have been, bad or evil or whatever, and I have done this horrible thing. There is no forgiveness for me. So there's nobody else saying this to the person. The person is saying to themselves.
yeah.
And then you say, but why can't you forgive yourself? Why are you better than anybody else?
Yes,
Anybody could have made this mistake,
yes,
you know?
yes.
So if you
Interesting.
state it, you now have to accept your own humanity, your own level of evolution, that you
Yes,
are at the stage where you still make mistakes like this. It's
yeah.
okay. This is who you are. You're
This is
not
very
even there
important. Yeah,
to heaven. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we have an illusion about where we are on the scale of evolution because we are so accustomed to showing this mask of our perfection and how good we are and all this and hiding all the negativities that we end up believing our own advertising and not really recognize what's going behind. And when we have that moment, say, oh, I could not have done this. I couldn't, mea culpa, nobody can forgive me. Is say, no, you're just thinking that you're better than others. You
Yes.
know, all of
It's
us,
yeah, it's
all of us could be
this
there.
this here, right? And I pointed to my head, but I'm really thinking the entire mental, emotional makeup that is expressed by our mental well-being is complicated, right? There's so much inside of us that is very hard. I was uh, I was reading just not so long ago. The may I? It's a completely outside of what we're talking, but I think it talks a little bit about what you're saying, which is, as we know, Sigmund Freud, late 19th century, the father of psychology, comes in, and he brings his entire approach to psychology from a disease, right? So it's you are ill, therefore I'm going to classify and I'm going to fix, quote unquote, fix you not being well into becoming well. Wow. I think it was like 40 some years later, Maslow comes in with this humanistic psychology approach, which is a complement to Freud. So now he brings on the psychology of health, mental health. So they start to complement each other, and the famous Maslow hierarchy of needs, where you start to look at the individual and comprehend that at the very basis is mostly physiological needs, and then it goes on into that psychological and emotional well-being until the self-actualization, right? Where that point is where all your latent, all the baggage that you brought from your 9,999 previous incarnation, right? Because we make mistakes, we have them with us, but we also have a lot of potentials, a lot of things that it's ripe to be developed and grow and bloom, if you will.
Mm.
The self-actualization, which is the peak of Maslow's pyramid, is when we start to do well with all the potentials that we have, right? And then Maslow develops with Viktor Frankl, Grof, etc., etc. There's several psychologists and philosophers and thought leaders that started this so-called depth psychology or transpersonal psychology, right? Which
Mm.
many people call it the force fourth of psychology, which deals beyond the best of the best and the beyond Marcia's peak and your peak. There is we've already come to the edge of it, and he said that's not enough. Just like Freud was not enough to
Mm.
explain, humanistic psychology is not enough. Let's now talk about now the spiritual, right, component, which is all embedded in that unconscious, the personal unconscious that you bring. And
Yeah.
of course, we bring now Joanna de Angelis, and Joanna de Angelis picks up from the fourth force and she's pushing on. She keeps, bringing, moving to the edge of it all to say, to really ask us to look at our life from the many, many dimensions, from the very physical dimension, from the dimension of not being well, being sick, Freud, right? From being positive and approaching all the stages of development in the Maslow, and then all the others, which are our experiences, our spiritual experiences. But what else? Which is, I think you were right there when you're talking about, which is all about learning the most, what can I say, sublime, the most amazing and pure feeling that we all have access, which is the ability to love in the expression of love, right? Which is forgiveness,
Yeah.
indulgence,
Mm.
patience. It is
Mm.
also courage, right? Courage to fail. I think that's probably one of the aspects that I think is most important for all of us, to be courageous enough to fail, but fail knowing that this is just a step into succeeding.
And bringing in there also tolerance that you were talking about
Yes.
earlier.
Hmm.
So it's interesting because sometimes when we start thinking about depth psychology, if you're like
Yeah.
me, you might become a little bit overwhelmed. I say, like, this is
Uh-huh.
me having difficulties with my life here. Never mind with all this shadow business and all this depth and all this thing that comes from within
All this crazy stuff.
all this. And so we can just bring it, say, okay, so what Joanna de Angelis is bringing to us, and all these psychologists have brought to us, is not the need for all of us to be going to therapy and, having to fix ourselves, if you like. It's more about thinking of understanding that we
Yes.
have this psychological element to us.
Yes.
And because life has moved on, and you talk about Maslow, and you can think about it as, let's say, well, we are Western women here, but our lives in the 21st century or the 20th century or the 19th century or the 18th century, just going back a century at a time,
Yeah.
life demanded, sometimes going backwards, that from the majority of the population, survival. All,
Yes.
all your energy was dedicated to surviving another day, to providing the food, to keeping safe from danger. If you're a woman, to having children and then eventually dying.
Hmm.
And it was, life was very at the Maslow, at the bottom of the pyramid for
Yeah.
the majority of people. Of course, there's always angels of illumination who are amongst us, bringing us higher thought and things. But the majority of the people, we were at that level. Now we're kind of moving up a level
Yeah.
and just saying, so what do we do with that? Because now actually we have a little bit of time and we start to realize other things, and we're looking around and we're trying to make sense of, why do I feel like this?
Yeah.
Or even, like, say, some people, they could be judgmental to others and being accusing, whatever. They're not even stopping to think about it. But a lot of
Uh-huh.
people think, they say, why am I like this? What's prompting this? What's provoking this in me? What part of me? And it's about this, that self-knowledge. And
The
Joanna,
psychological maturity, right? Yeah.
exactly. And she introduces ways of us to think about this deep personal unconscious, what we bring, and how the things that we don't deal with, the things that we sweep under the carpet, they go nowhere. They just make the carpet go lumpy. They're going to have to come out at some point. It's
Uh-huh.
an illusion to be
Yes.
hiding things. Sometimes we need to put things under the carpet because we are not able at that time to deal with it. It's too much for us. And that's fair
Hmm.
enough. But at some point, we need to let things start to come out, because with those things we've hidden, they're all things that we have forgotten.
Yes.
And it's just being able to look and to have that confidence to own up and
Yes.
say, yes, I've done this because this is me at this point of evolution. Now, how can I make this better? What changes can I make? And you will find many times, curiously, like the spirits, they write many stories and books, and when you've failed in a particular area, you tend to come back and want to fix that area. So I know a friend of mine, he's a physiotherapist. He's
Yeah.
fixing everybody's body, making
Yeah.
everybody's neck good again, everybody's arms and legs. And he was like so excited, there's such a good job, blah, blah. And then he was saying, like, oh, I feel such a healer. I'm healing everybody,
Yeah.
I'm making everybody better. But when he asked to see, he's thinking he's coming on a long trajectory of healing,
Yes.
others. But when he asked for that memory to be shown to him in a regression, what he sees is the opposite. He
Ah.
was a torturer. He was dismembering other people's bodies.
Uh-huh.
And now he's come back to make people heal, to put their
So,
bodies
so,
back
so to
together.
me, this is beautiful, and but it's a good example, and many people do not subscribe in regression therapy, but it, no
Yeah,
judgment, right? No judgment here, but how beautiful it is on one hand that he's able to address that guilt that somehow it must be buried, right? It's a different
yeah.
life, may not remember that. So he uses his entire lifetime to be the best that he can do to kind of undo the hurt that he was an instrument of. But also, it begs us to think about from an ego self perspective, right? From that egoic or super high and mighty ego in the ego self equation, that I'm a healer, and then you go like, ooh, I'm a healer. You see, I'm a healer. Look at all the long list of patients, which even this story brings us with the fact that deep inside of him, and I've heard of people that are extremely accomplished, like this person, the highest in their career, the pinnacle of whatever, and they approach it with a sense almost of despair. And I wonder if it's because the mechanism that is buried inside of guilt. Think
Hmm.
about it, right? It's
Because,
buried, it's not recognized, but there is a feeling that gnaws at you, even when you do your best and you feel perhaps I haven't done enough. But the other side of the coin, because we need to make these things differently, if pretend, let's put the hat that we are God or a mentor, right? Put the head, and we look at this friend, and for example, he goes into this regression therapy. He finds out that the thing that he was the most proud in his life, the ability to help others and to heal, now he is face to face confronted with this idea that, hey, look, look at who you really are, right? You're nothing, and this person may just, go
Yeah.
into a state of perhaps despair. This is all from my head,
No,
and
let me say something. Let me
yeah,
interrupt you
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Because I think that even, what comes to you in regressions and things like that, spontaneously
yeah,
or
yeah.
intuitively, I do believe, we have our spiritual team that's with us and they're supporting us.
Even in
That
those,
is
yeah,
who
yeah,
he was. That is not who he is anymore. He now is
exactly.
the healer.
Yes,
And he
and
has been
we,
able to do that transition. But
yes. And
because
I think
he had,
that's what I wanted. Sorry to interrupt, because that's
yeah,
what I wanted to really emphasize to you and to me and to all of us who are watching this. Even if you go through and confront the darkest side of yourself, we should honor the step and the movement toward overcoming that,
yeah,
right?
because that, but what I wanted to say is that this happens almost naturally
Yes, beautiful to hear. Yeah,
because this person, I'm giving this example as a way of trying to exemplify. So, I mean, no,
sure.
makes a decision when they're 18 or 17 or something. You know what? I like sport. I like muscles.
Mm,
Let me become a physiotherapist. That sounds like a good job for me. Goes to university, studies. I said, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy making people whole again, making their
yes,
bodies move well, and has great joy of it. It is a joyous experience. And then because they were curious, because they wanted to thinking about, oh, I must have been doing this many lives because I can do this
yeah,
really well. This is
yeah,
kind of where it was coming from. And then there was given this view of saying, no, actually, well, maybe what you were doing was actually the opposite, but you are
yes,
given the opportunity to do it good. And now, so that kind of was like a bit of a reality call. So
yes,
it's not necessarily appropriate or useful, as you're saying, to any of us sometimes to be actually see what we've done. We don't need to see. We need to be able to forgive, to love, and start with ourselves. And if we love ourselves, let's say, and whatever job we do, whether it's flipping burgers or doing
yeah,
heart surgery, it's
yes,
all equally important. People need to eat and people need to have their hearts fixed. But whatever you're doing it with love and to the best of your ability. There
yeah,
is a reason why you're doing that job and why you're serving your brothers and sisters in that way. And I think it's really beautiful that life takes you there naturally.
yes,
And so sometimes, for example, you have a lawyer defending, the worst criminals, and you
yeah,
think, why? Why would they choose this? It's not for us to know why they choose this, but for sure, there's an inner motivation that takes them to that place. So, in whichever place we are,
uh-huh.
let us do our best
I love
by
it.
loving ourselves and loving what we're doing and doing it by giving and serving, because it is the love that transforms everything. So we don't need to go to a courtroom and see all our past mistakes and show in the face and make us humiliated and sorry and everything. No, we just know that we have made mistakes because everybody has. It's inevitable, it's part of our human condition. But saying that as from today, we try to avoid doing unto others what we wouldn't like them to do to us. Just simple rule. And
Yeah,
try to be honest and open and say, yeah, we made a mistake. I own up. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. How can I can make it better? Rather than hiding it under the carpet again or in the shadow, if you like. But I think that it's needs to come from a place first of wherever we are, that we love and accept ourselves, and that we don't have an expectation of a perfection that we still don't have, but
yeah,
which we will attain one day, but not
yes.
today.
Yeah,
That
I
trying to
think
have the best version of ourselves ever.
yes, yes, I love it. I love it. Those are such beautiful end as we end our conversation here. Beautiful words. And as you're speaking, it comes that image in my mind, and that you alluded already, which is Jesus, right? At the time, not only in the Mosaic laws, adultery was a crime, a sin, right? And that deserved death, and not just death, but death by stoning. And he's faced with this woman that was, this is me trying to be a 21st century sensationalist. She was caught in the act. She was, there was evidence, there was no way that she said I didn't commit. She did commit, and she was put there in a public area with a lot of men, they're all men, ready to stone her. And of course, through the mechanism of his ability to demonstrate to each and every one that he could see the mistakes in all others, they did not have the authority to stone her. But as you said, and I kind of uh, find it really, really beautiful, the fact that he never said, "Oh, go on, my child. Nobody stoned you. Nobody condemned you. Go on. Bye. Now go back to your life. Bye." He looks at her and he sees all her failings and her failures, her mistakes, her transgressions in the lifetime of lifetimes that she has had. And yet he says, you're okay. The sum, if you will, is good, right? If you put all together, you're ready to move on to the next path, the next level of your journey, my child. And he says, like you said before, go and sin no more. And by saying that, she can redirect her efforts, her life, to no longer fall into the same area of mistakes. But I think for all of us, what I'd like to part here, Anne, is to know that if we judge ourselves, and we do, consciously or not, we do, and we feel guilty, right? Overcoming our guilt is an act as kind as that we witness from Jesus into that woman, right? He never said, "I forgive you," right?
Yeah.
He said, "You were forgiven. You were forgiven." And let us be bring that to our minds, that all of our mistakes, like you said, big or small, they're there, but they're learning opportunities for us. So let us learn and let us embrace all that is beautiful, and that in a non-judgmental way for us and for the others. Let us be loving and welcoming to who we are in whatever stage of development we may be.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Anyways, it is time. So, Ed, I want to say thank you. Until we meet again, I want to say goodbye to everyone. I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate all of us learning together about psychology and spirituality. Until next time.